The U.S. Treasury Department released its latest report on international capital flows on April 17, which showed that at least 22 countries worldwide sold off U.S. Treasuries in February. The list of countries includes China, Japan, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Switzerland, Ireland, Canada, India, France, Germany, the Netherlands, the United Arab Emirates, Australia, Israel, Iraq, Italy, Poland, Kuwait, Sweden, Colombia, the Bahamas, and Vietnam. Japan, one of the largest holders of U.S. debt, sold $22.6 billion of U.S. Treasuries in February, reducing its position to $1.0818 trillion. Moreover, 6 of the G7 countries, namely Japan, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, and Italy, collectively sold U.S. Treasuries in February. In addition to Japan, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Australia, and Israel also sold $3.7 billion and $4.1 billion of U.S. Treasuries, respectively. Israel has been increasing its foreign exchange reserves in non-dollar currencies such as the yuan, which some analysts believe may be an attempt to sell off the dollar. Israel's selling behavior may encourage other U.S. allies to also sell U.S. Treasuries, especially given the U.S. debt ceiling stalemate. Japan, Israel, and other traditional U.S. allies are continuing to contribute to the collapse of U.S. Treasuries. In a speech at the New York Stock Exchange on April 17, U.S. House Speaker McCarthy announced that the House would vote to extend the U.S. debt ceiling subject to new spending restrictions attached. He emphasized that the House would not choose to default, and that no unconditional increase in the debt ceiling would pass. McCarthy added that the risk of a first default by this administration increases if the White House delays negotiations for too long. The U.S. debt is a ticking time bomb, and serious and responsible action must be taken to avoid detonation. Unfortunately, Biden appears to be taking no steps. White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates reiterated the White House's call for the House to agree to an unconditional debt ceiling removal on April 17. He stated that McCarthy is holding America's trust and credibility hostage, threatening the U.S. economy and Americans' retirement. As the U.S. economy becomes more divided, the U.S. debt impasse remains contentious. Additionally, the collective dumping of U.S. debt by several U.S. allies has shown that they are not supporting the potential crisis in U.S. debt but rather exacerbating the dilemma. Furthermore, while the Federal Reserve released some liquidity in March to respond to the U.S. banking crisis induced by the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the Fed's latest balance sheet shows that only in the 2 weeks ending April 6, the Fed's balance sheet decreased by $101 billion to $8.63 trillion. Quantitative tightening continues at its normal pace. It is noteworthy that several small and medium-sized U.S. banks that received emergency liquidity loans in March in response to the crisis have begun making interest payments to the Fed. Meanwhile, the Fed continues to reduce the size of its U.S. Treasury holdings. The Fed has sold a cumulative total of up to $491 billion in U.S. Treasuries, reducing its holdings to $5.28 trillion, the lowest level since August 2021. This is another indication that instead of providing substantial support for the U.S. banking crisis and the deep debt impasse, the Fed has increased its efforts to liquidate U.S. debt and stop paying for the U.S. debt economy model. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has repeatedly emphasized in the last 3 months that the U.S. Congress must raise the debt ceiling as soon as possible to avoid default. The Fed cannot solve this problem alone. Recent data from the U.S. Treasury Department shows that China sold $10.6 billion of U.S. Treasuries in February, marking the 7th consecutive. As the global financial landscape shifts away from the dollar, the U.S. government faces increasing pressure to address its debt crisis and restore confidence in the currency. However, political gridlock and conflicting priorities continue to impede progress on this front. In recent months, the Biden administration has proposed several measures to boost economic growth and address income inequality, including a $2.3 trillion infrastructure plan and a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. While these proposals have garnered support from many Democrats, they have faced fierce opposition from Republicans who argue that they are too expensive and will exacerbate the national debt. This partisan divide has spilled over into negotiations over the debt ceiling, which determines the amount of money the government can borrow to finance its operations. Democrats have called for a clean debt ceiling increase, meaning one that does not include any spending cuts or other conditions, arguing that failure to raise the ceiling would cause a catastrophic default and harm the economy. Republicans, on the other hand, have demanded that any debt ceiling increase be tied to spending cuts or other fiscal reforms, arguing that the government must rein in its spending to address the debt crisis. As the August 1st deadline for the debt ceiling approaches, the stakes are high for both parties. Failure to raise the ceiling could trigger a default on U.S. debt, which would have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. It could also harm the U.S. government's credit rating and increase borrowing costs, making it more difficult to finance future operations. At the same time, the debt ceiling debate is just one of several factors contributing to the global shift away from the dollar. As more countries seek to diversify their foreign currency reserves and reduce their dependence on the dollar, the U.S. government must take decisive action to address its debt crisis and restore confidence in the currency. This could involve a range of measures, from reducing spending and increasing revenue to implementing structural reforms to address long-term fiscal challenges. It could also involve working with international partners to develop new mechanisms for global financial stability and cooperation. Ultimately, the future of the dollar will depend on the actions taken by the U.S. government and its ability to address its debt crisis in a timely and effective manner. As the global financial landscape continues to evolve, the stakes for the U.S. economy and the global economy are higher than ever before.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing for more content. Take care.